The future has arrived. As the world and humanity itself moves faster and faster into unimaginable possibilities, old institutions that built connection and shaped our sense of meaning are falling by the wayside. In their wake, profound questions about ethics, our purpose, and spirituality demand new answers. Join your host, Scott Mason, in Season 2 of the Purpose Highway podcast. We will explore how these social changes will revolutionize our society. We will learn how they impact our own search for connection and meaning. And we will hear stories of influencers whose lives have had radical change from the inside and found profound connection to others and themselves through a new definition of meaning. The future has arrived. Are you ready?
When you're racing down the Purpose Highway, we want to make sure you're healthy and happy every step of the way. That's why we're proud to partner with It's NOLA, 21st century plant-based healthy granola snack bites made with real ingredients and audacious flavor. It's NOLA crafts small batch hand-rolled granola balls that are vegan, gluten-free, and naturally low in sugar. It's NOLA's delightful bites come in 3 flavors: luscious cranberry coconut, sassy mango masala, and dark, decadent, chewy chocolate. It's NOLA is available to both individual customers and for wholesale accounts at itsnola.com. That's itsnola.com. Guests on this show are already enjoying this delicious snack. Check out It's NOLA's website for yourself and find out how good it is. Hello, everybody. It's Scott Mason, revving up for another race down the Purpose Highway. If you like what we're doing, be sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on YouTube or a review on Apple. Now, sitting next to me today in the front seat is Kate Eckman. Kate is the author of the Full Spirit Workout, a 10-step system to shred your self-doubt, strengthen your spiritual core, and create a fun and fulfilling life. She is a broadcast journalist and TV personality who brings her expertise in communications, performance, and mindfulness to her practice as a success coach for business leaders and professional athletes. Whew, barely got that one out. She earned a BA in communications from Penn State University and received her master's degree in broadcast journalism from Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism. She graduated at the highest level from Columbia University's Executive and Organizational Coaching Program and has other certifications from Yale University and Stanford too. Passionate about mindfulness practices for both brain and body health, she is also a meditation teacher and a course creator for Insight Timer, the world's #1 ranked free meditation app. In the meantime, before you get that app and listen to her, Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. My cheeks already hurt from smiling. I just adore you. Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
There is nothing like love. And by the time this show is over, our audience is going to love you every bit as much as I do.
Okay,
But,
great.
yes.
I'm just worried about my cheeks.
Well, you know what? The good news is it looks like you dolled up a little bit for the show, so I'm not worried about that in the least.
I had to bring it for you, my friend.
You did. Let's just pull out a fork and a knife, whip the pie out of the oven, and start to dig in. We, as a society, are in the middle of a revolution of thought, one of massive proportions. For tens of thousands of years, institutions like formalized religious structures or state-sponsored frameworks for spirituality and ethical development have driven the sort of social connection and individual resilience that really only spirituality can provide. But, as you and I have previously discussed, those historical institutions are in decline. New voices relating to spirituality are emerging and gaining traction, such as yours. Pre-interview, you said that you are passionate about spiritual fitness. Spiritual fitness. What is that? And what are symptoms of someone who lacks it?
Wow. Well, spiritual fitness is really the courage to be who we truly are, not just the polished, put together person that we present to the world, but that messy, deeply flawed, but gorgeous human behind the scenes, just trying to keep it all together. As I like to say to my clients, this is a no pretend zone. I feel that all of us have been guilty of pretending in some level. We've all succumbed to toxic positivity and just, let it go and be happy, and haven't really given ourselves the care or the space or the grace to really feel the full spectrum of our emotions, which is part of the human experience and condition. And so spiritual fitness is really getting that fitness and confidence and resilience on the inside that can weather any storm, because sadly, the chaos and uncertainty and pure sickness and insanity of the world isn't going anywhere. And so it really is up to us to develop this inner musculature, to build the attitudinal muscles that really are like a six-pack abs on the outside. We need to develop that inside, and that's building the strong mental, emotional, and spiritual muscles. Someone who's lacking in spiritual fitness is depending on all of the externals for their sense of self-worth. They think their looks, their money, their job, their house, their home, their shiny objects define them. They think that that is success and wealth and fulfillment, and they haven't realized, maybe they haven't had the wake-up call and calls that I certainly had, that all of those shiny objects don't move the needle on our well-being. And neuroscience says that, all of my research says that, and quite frankly, my own life has indicated that. So when you are lacking in spiritual fitness, you think that the Gucci bag is going to make you feel better. And maybe it will. I love Gucci bags for 15 minutes, and then it's on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Do you feel like there have been any changes in the general level of spiritual fitness within our culture in the past 20, 30, 40 years? And the reason why I ask that is those are things that people used to hear all the time in those institutions that are in decline. Now, the reasons for those declines are the subject of other podcast episodes, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about them if you have them. But irrespective of what the reason is, what they did is created spaces for people to aggregate, receive that message, and then reinforce the message with each other, that we are connected, that there may be something higher that we can aspire to than a Gucci bag or whatever other, a promotion at our job, that we can come together and unite behind. With that connection gone or changing, I would imagine that that would have a cultural impact on spiritual fitness as you describe it. But that's just me talking here. What do you have to say? Do you think that my diagnosis is right? Or do you think that there is more at play? Do you think there's less at play? Or do you think this is something that's been with us all along?
Wow, what a question. I think for me personally, I grew up and I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, despite the fact that I wasn't even Catholic, and I've grew up in a household that believed in God and went to church. I think my relationship with God has changed and evolved over the years. When I think of God, I think of unconditional love. I think of the force that creates the sun, the moon, and the stars, that also created little old me and you. And I choose to co-create with this force and this power and believe in this. I have friends and colleagues who don't believe in God, but they believe in nature, for instance. They believe in the divine wisdom that turns an embryo into a baby, an acorn into an oak tree. Think of the sun. It's not up there competing with the clouds and the moon and the rainbow and the stars. Everyone's shining in their own glory. And so that's what I'm talking about here. For me, it's a place of safety and comfort. And even when I feel alone, as someone who lives alone, and it's certainly been a challenging year and a half for all of us, I remind myself that I'm not alone, and I can invite in and co-create with this force and power in any time. This force and power is used to unite rather than divide. It's not judging based on gender or sexuality or socioeconomic class or race or any of that. This is really a united force. That's what I believe in. So that to me is uniting all of us. I also think spirituality at sometimes can get that bad rap, and then people just gloss over things. And there's this culture now of manifestation and these quote unquote coaches online where manifest millions. And I had a 7-figure month and good. And I'm glad you're making money, but there has to be a deeper purpose and a why. And for me, it's not enough that I'm doing well and I'm succeeding. I want all of the people around me to do well and succeed. And it really is this other focus and this collective that I'm concerned with, which is why, a week or so ago, I was at the beach with a friend. I should have been feeling great, but it was when all the Afghanistan upheaval was happening and the Taliban. And I felt depressed, and I felt bad being depressed around my friend. And when I tuned in with myself, I got curious and asked, what's going on here? Your life is quite great in this moment, but there was so much turmoil around me that it was affecting me. And I actually think that that's a good thing, because it means that I care about something other than manifesting my Hamptons vacation or my fancy blouse that I'm going to wear on a podcast.
Yeah. I love it. Although I love that you're wearing a fancy blouse on this podcast. I manifested that, by the way, everyone. I manifested it. I had nothing better to do than manifest Kate Eckman wearing a fancy blouse onto my podcast, and bam, she did it.
But we all need some liquid gold in our lives.
But let's talk a little bit about a couple of things that are embedded in what you said. I personally find it intriguing, your conception of spirituality, and I like the fact, by the way, also that you do not discount other visions of spirituality or even an absence of spirituality as including any sort of supernaturalism, like some of your more materially focused, not in terms of materialism, but the physical universe focused friends. The concept of the force of the universe uniting us all, and you or me being able to be co-creators within that, is one that has profound power. But some that might come from more traditional spiritual traditions could turn to you and say, whoa, there's some real hubris there. You're putting yourself on the same level as the divine forces in the universe. Is that arrogance? And is reaching for that arrogance, it's, as a place within to put our own capacities, dangerous?
I don't put myself on the same level as the divine wisdom. That's the grass is growing, the flowers are blooming, the sun is shining. What I'm saying is that we all have access to this higher power, divine wisdom, whatever we want to call it. It's there working behind the scenes, whether we choose to believe it or not. I choose to believe in it and work with it, not against it. Mm-hmm. And I invite that divine wisdom in. I do that through meditation, through my practice, what I call sit and stare, where I do exactly that. I sit and stare out the window, stare at nature, stare straight ahead, and reflect and check in with myself like I'm a small child, asking, how are you doing? What do you need? What's working? So when I invite that in, first of all, what I love about this is that it's available to all of us. You don't have to be a supermodel. You don't have to have a Harvard degree. You don't have to live on Park Avenue and be a billionaire. We all have access to this. That is exciting. You have to invite it in, and you invite it in by getting quiet, by being still, by going on that walk in nature and turning off all the devices and noise and tuning in. And then you move that intelligence from your head down into your heart. Let it live in your body. Let it live in your bones. This is the wisdom that allows all of us to drive a car without thinking about it. That wisdom lives in our body. And then you move that wisdom down into your hands and you implement it. And you ask for that guidance and support and direction that says things like, why don't you call Scott and ask to collaborate with him on this project? Why don't you leave this job and start your own business? This relationship has run its course. You are no longer seen or heard by this person. It's time to leave. I know this is scary. I also know it sounds simple, which it is, but it's not easy. But we all need to become more practiced at listening. And I don't pretend. I think we are all so powerful, but I don't think that we are God. I do not. I think that we co-create with him or her or whatever higher power you believe in. Does that make sense?
It does. And one of the things that I like about it, again, sort of looping back into one of the remarks that you made earlier, actually a couple of the remarks that you made earlier that I think are interesting and worth exploring a little bit more deeply. There is an absence of narcissism in what I'm hearing that is a consistent theme in your work. And the reason I raise that is because this is a show where we are exploring the decline of traditional spirituality and the emergence of new voices. And there is a trend, like you said, people can sort of wash over spirituality to some extent because there is a tendency of some in the spiritual community to present it as magical thinking, which doesn't have a lot of intellectual heft. Let's be real about that. And then some of it is exactly what you're talking about. Spirituality as a Trojan horse for living life in an unethical or selfish way. You were talking earlier about the importance of viewing things larger than we are, as intimately connected to our own spirituality. Why do you feel that is so important? Some might say the need for that is over. We are living in a capitalist society. We roll up our sleeves. We go for what is best for us personally, and the world just ends up. Why should I impinge on my freedoms? Why should I impinge on the inconveniences that sort of attitude might bring? Why should I be thinking about Afghanistan? I've worked hard all week and I just want to be on the beach. What is your response to that sort of thinking?
I mean, you don't have to dwell in it. I think certainly, and I give myself this own advice, to observe it without absorbing it. I'm very empathetic, so I do take on some of the sadness and chaos of the world and the people around me. I have to be very mindful of that, especially being on a New York City subway or being in a place like New York City where there's so much stimulus, so much to pick up on. I think it's important to care about things happening outside of your household, because eventually every public matter will reach your private door. COVID is a very good example of that. No one was immune to it. You know, it didn't discriminate. The virus still doesn't discriminate, and we're all affected. And maybe you were fortunate enough to not get sick, but your mom did, or your neighbor did. Or even if you don't know anyone who's impacted, that if you don't care that hundreds of thousands of people have just died, that's something we need to look at. And maybe my work and maybe spirituality, it should be for you. Maybe it isn't for you right now, but I do caution that you won't be prepared at all when your time comes, because none of us are immune to the suffering of the world or tragedy or something like that happening. And I think another point that you made is, you know, spiritual fitness isn't just sitting around with vision boards and wishing for things to happen. It is like going to the gym. You can't just show up in your cute outfit and expect to be fit. Your personal trainer can't do the sit-ups and push-ups for you. That's on you. But the good news about that is the results are yours. And then you get to become the person who naturally attracts the experiences, opportunities, peace of mind. You attract people like yourself. As Martin Luther King Jr. says, on your journey, mighty companions will join you. You become the person who can actually achieve your cherished goals rather than having to force or control or manipulate. You are allowing. And for me, I don't like to think about where I would be in my life if I didn't have these spiritual tools or practices, if I didn't have a belief in a higher power, if I didn't do this work that has not been easy. That isn't easy. Or you think, I saw a quote recently that made me laugh out loud that said, you think you're so enlightened, go spend a week with your parents. And I love my parents, but our parents, our partners, they trigger us like no other. They bring up all of our stuff. And so for me, I'm not people that say, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for spiritual fitness. I don't have time to care about Afghanistan. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to be miserable. I don't have time to be exhausted or overwhelmed or speak badly to the people I care about. And so this is about a conscious, deliberate, intentional way of being and asking yourself, who do I want to be? Maybe you want to be a jerk. Maybe you're fine. There's plenty of people in very powerful positions in our country and world who clearly don't care. And so they're probably not listening to this, quite frankly. I wish they would. But there's a lot of work that needs to happen there. But for me, they show me who I don't want to be, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about the reality, I believe that we cannot remain immune from the problems of the world, I can't help but think about my own attitude about world events prior to 9/11. I have always considered myself a well-informed person. I always read the national and international news, but I didn't always truly absorb it. And so I remember reading about, for instance, Al-Qaeda terrorist attacks in Africa and not really thinking about it, or a Saudi pipeline that got blown up that was under American jurisdiction of an oil company or something like that. And yeah, I thought about it, read about it, and then moved on. Then all of a sudden, in front of me was the World Trade Center collapsing. These things do have a way of coming to our doorstep, whether we like it or not. And even people, for instance, in the Midwest or the South that might not have felt that 9/11 directly impacted them, when people in their community were called to war and began to die, suddenly it was a different story. The reason why I talk about all of this is because this sense of interconnectedness, and then what you just said a minute ago about choosing to be a jerk or not, raises a very interesting set of questions in my mind that I'd like to throw out at you, which is, do you believe there is a connection between spiritual fitness and ethics?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because spiritual fitness is really sharpening your sword. It's fine tuning your instrument so then you can play it for the world. And it is that question of who am I underneath all the titles and labels and what I'm presenting the world, and what do I really want? Not what I want, but what I really want. And so many people, I see it in my work, they haven't, millionaires, billionaires, they haven't even considered this. They're just on the hamster wheel. They're going straight ahead without considering these deeper questions. And the ethic comes in, and I get it. It's overwhelming to sit here where first it's a hurricane here, it's a tornado there, it's Afghanistan here. The starving children, the neglected animals. It will take you out. And I've been in that place, and I've had to, when COVID was first happening, this, being in New York City where tens of, however many, 50,000 people in your neighborhood are dying. And I cried every day last April. I couldn't stop. And it was because I was so plugged into that. And I had to consciously unplug for a moment. I think it's good to care and to care about things more than just ourselves. And that is part of the unity and the spiritual fitness and being tied in. And I get that it's overwhelming. And so I just start with, okay, I can't go to Afghanistan and rescue all the women and children or the civilians who are being shot for whatever reason, or the LGBTQ community there they're under attack. But what I can do is walk down the street and smile at people. I can donate my time and money for organizations and causes I believe in. I can donate miles to the women and hope that they get them in Afghanistan. I can ask the checkout clerk at the grocery store, look at him in his eyes and say, how are you doing? And just consciously connect with people. It does create a ripple effect. Doesn't sound hokey pokey, magical thinking. These are things that sound almost absurd to say, quite frankly, but that we've forgotten to do. Or one of the practices I talk about in my book, the gratitude visit. I mean, when do people declare expressions of love and gratitude and appreciation for another human? At their funeral, when they're dead, and no longer there to receive it in the human physical form. And so this is what I'm talking about. And it absolutely is ethics, because I think ethics involves integrity and caring about something besides just ourselves, and doing the right thing, even when it's not the easiest thing to do. I don't know. I feel like I'm up on my soapbox and I can go on. And clearly I'm passionate about this because I see the breakdown of it all around me, and it saddens me deeply. And it's why, even as an extreme extrovert, I have to take a lot of quiet time to myself because, quite frankly, my heart hurts a lot.
Wow. I'm going to get personal here, Kate. For many years, I was the ultimate careerist. My attitude was, I'm going to get ahead. There is a particular organizational position that I want. There is a certain professional stature that I want to have. I am going to get it. Do not get in my way. And I achieved it. Why was I so focused on that, Kate? Because I didn't have anything else. I was one of these people that wasn't going to go to church. I'm LGBTQ. Half of them were trashing gay people left and right. And I didn't find a lot of the community that was being built within those institutions to be ones that I necessarily felt connected to. So I had nothing else, looking back on it, to hold on to except these titles. So part of what I have to ask you is, well, okay, I want more. I need more than just title or a great office or all of these sorts of things. But what else is there? What else? How do I even begin? There's the only thing that matters in terms of social advancement or being able to achieve the good things that we have in our world. Let's face it, in the world that we have, power, title, money, have currency. You don't have those things, you're at the bottom of the ladder, and life can be hard. So if I want to avoid being someone stomped over in the mud, I have to achieve these things. And I'm alone, but at least I'm not alone at the bottom of the rung. What do you say to someone whose mindset is like mine? How do you even begin to approach that?
Yeah, I say that you are a symptom of our society and our culture. And you've subscribed to the hustle and struggle like the rest of us. And I say this with no judgment because I've been there too. And we've all been there, quite frankly, unless you're Gandhi or somebody.
And even he was.
Yeah. So I think to acknowledge that, and I was in that same place, that exact same place. And you collect all the externals, and you're seen in a certain way. You've got the money, you've got the this, you've got the that. And you think, gosh, but I'm still not fulfilled. I work with a client who's near billionaire status, and he says, okay, I can close another $100 million deal, but I don't need another mansion. I don't need or want another Ferrari. What does all of this mean? I'm not fulfilled. He just had a heart attack and almost died at 48 years old.
What?
So he's thinking about, what does all of this mean? And what am I leaving behind for my children? Money? Okay, great. What else? And so these are the conversations that I'm having with people. This was a conversation I had to have with myself at the Duane Reade Pharmacy on 8th Avenue across from Penn Station, 7 years ago, when I just lost the love of my life to suicide after another dear friend killed himself a year prior. And I was in so much pain. I didn't want to hurt myself, but I just wanted the pain to go away. Luckily, my brother's a physician and threatened to call the cops on me. And I had that moment of clarity where I thought, oh my gosh, who have I become? And I'm the happy girl. What am I doing here in this pharmacy? And it was that point of, there's got to be a better way of living. And especially the two men who killed themselves, they were cream of the crop, gorgeous, successful, perfect in the eyes of society, chose to end their lives young. Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, Robin Williams, so many beloved celebrities who had it all chose to end their lives. And so for me, that was a rock bottom, obviously. And it was my mission then to come up with the keys for a better way of living, not just for myself, but for everybody. Because if I'm there, so many people are there. And it doesn't mean that we still don't want success and to do well in our careers and make an impact, but our worth and all of it has to ultimately come from within. I know a lot of people pay lip service to that, and it is a practice like anything else. It is the six-pack abs that I've never had, so I wouldn't know. But as you can imagine, that takes a lot of work to get and maintain. It takes discipline and it takes a true commitment. And so I just offer and ask and invite and encourage everyone to think, who do I really want to be? And what does that look like and feel like, and start to define it for yourself? Because as I like to say, it's not midnight yet, but it's 11:45. It's time to identify and leverage your unique gifts and strengths and start using them, not just for yourself and your promotion and your new Upper West Side apartment, which I love, but for a larger collective goal that's going to benefit someone more than just you.
Well, you're saying it is not midnight yet, it's 11:45, but I assume for your client who had a heart attack at age 48, it was midnight. He didn't even realize it. And that's the scary thing about this. I want to talk a little bit more about, I'm just sort of taking in that for a minute, because it really does go as to something that we can gloss over. It's very uncomfortable, but I'll just throw it out here. Death, not to be over dramatic, death can happen at any time. Presumably, if he had a heart attack, he could have died. The people who I mentioned earlier who were in the World Trade Center on 9/11, they went to work that day thinking it was going to be another whatever in their personal life, particularly anyone that was in the executive teams or of ambition there, that day may have helped them get further in their life. And the next thing they knew, they were jumping off 100-story building to the ground below to escape a fire. These things can happen. It may be midnight and we may not even know it. And you're talking about your 11:45. You have a profound personal investment in the work that you're doing that you hinted at a minute ago. Let's begin to understand why you were and are so passionate about this. Explain the story of yourself, your connection with those two men, and exactly what happened.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be in such a dark place, and I know most people do. And if you don't, God bless you, but sorry, your time's coming too. No one really escapes dark moments in life. It's part of our human experience. But for me, it was that really strong transition from getting all of my worth from the externals, like most people, and thinking that that's all that we're worthy of. And that's like what we achieve is if we're not doing that, we're not worthy of love or anything else. And I picked up that mentality as a young kid, and I talk about that in my book, and being that 4-year-old little girl at the swim club and overhearing the swim instructor communicate to my mom that he didn't think I was a very good swimmer. And as a 4-year-old, a sweet little 4-year-old, getting that mentality that says, oh my gosh, I've got to perform at a really high level so that I'm safe in the world. Yeah. And my mom and dad love me and are proud of me. And who knew you had to impress the stranger at the swim club so he didn't badmouth you and, you didn't have to feel rejected or dumb or lacking. And so despite that, man, I ended up breaking all but 2 records at that swim club, was, the state and national swim champion, but at what cost? I think that's what we all have to look at. Okay, I got the promotion. I'm doing all this. At what cost? I don't have a good relationship with my family because I'm never there. I'm stressed out. I'm grumpy. I haven't seen my friends in months. For me, it was filled with anxiety and insecurity and this obsession with performance.
Yeah.
So I do invite everyone to go back and look at their origin story, something you picked up in childhood, a limiting belief that you made the truth, and went about your life collecting evidence for that. Let's delete that and come up and co-create a new thought system, belief system, mantra for ourselves and story, and start collecting evidence for that. But I am so passionate because when you think right now of a love of your life, maybe it's a romantic partner, maybe it's a best friend, maybe it's a parent, a friend, whomever, and you think about that person jumping off a bridge one Monday morning out of nowhere. Yeah, that's gonna make you re-examine a lot of things in your life.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about what happened with that. Were these situations ones that occurred out of the blue? What were the lessons that you extracted from it, if you were able to? Did you see it coming? Were these men in similar psychological states as a lot of the clients that you work with now? There's a lot to unpack there, and if you could help us walk through that, so we can wrap our minds around what you went through. So
my ex, Rav, he was hiding a secret. In other words, he was scared to be who he was, for fear of rejection or criticism. And I think a lot of people experience that, because of their race, religion, sexuality, gender, whatever it is. He was so young, 31. Yes, came out of the blue. No one saw it coming.
Oh my God.
Sam was, very successful actor and model. He was the face of every huge fashion house. He was discovered by Tommy Hilfiger himself when he was young and was the face of that brand for 6 years. Very successful. But again, all of his worth came from that. And when you stop booking the jobs, when you stop becoming the it person, the money goes away, some friends go away, and that's what all you think it is. You can see why you go to a dark place, but no drugs, no alcohol. Sam never had a sip of alcohol in his life, let alone drugs or anything else. So it's also interesting. These two men were the only two people I've ever known that never said one bad thing about another person. And just that sweet soul and spirit. And maybe, the insanity of the world just can be too much for someone, like that. I just think if they had the tools, that's why I've studied so hard. I can't stop getting degrees and certifications and learning because, these men didn't have to die. I truly believe if they had the tools, I truly believe if society allowed men, especially straight men, to share their feelings and emotions. I think if you even look at the Olympics and the ridicule that Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka got for admitting and being brave enough to admit that they weren't in the best place. And in Simone's case could have physically hurt herself by competing. And just the ridicule that you get from even non-athletes, people who would never make the Olympics. You see why people, sadly, would rather die than be who they are or admit the truth or live or speak their truth. And it's a tragedy. I have no patience or tolerance left for it, which is why I'm doing this work, speaking about it and trying. I know I'm just little me, but I'm trying to change the mindset and the culture that is so toxic.
Thank you for that. Do you feel then that there is a relationship between spiritual engagement and resilience? I'm reading between the lines that you are seeing a connection, but I want to hear a little bit more about that explicitly, if what I'm reading between the lines is even true.
Yeah, there absolutely is a connection. And what just came to me is, after I had faced another rejection, I call myself a rejection specialist, but, my agent called to deliver this news. She sounded just as deflated as I felt. And I remember looking up at God and the angels and just saying, this is a divine assignment I took on for you. I don't have time. It was this book. I don't have time to write a book right now. You want me to do this? You make it happen. I'm done. I was pissed. I was exhausted. And, I went to my favorite pizza place in New York. I had my, margarita pizza, my Montepulciano red wine, and I'm sitting there. It was a Friday afternoon. It was a beautiful fall day, the breeze under the umbrella. And I heard this again. It's divine download, God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, that said, being okay if it happens and okay if it doesn't is a very powerful place to be. And it just washed over me, and I understood it in my bones. It was this wisdom, not just something I understood intellectually in my head. And I thought, yeah, I don't care when this book deal happens, because I know that it will, and I'll let them figure it out behind the scenes. And 2 weeks later, I was on the phone with my now publisher, and it did happen that fast because I surrendered, and I stopped clenching so tightly and just let it happen on divine timing. And it's such a great message that's, like my mother, she couldn't get pregnant for 8 years. Obviously she did. I'm her biological child. But when I asked her, how were you able to get pregnant? She said, I gave it up. And she didn't mean she gave up. She gave it up. She believes in God. And I think I hate when people say, let it go. I find it dismissive and even a little abusive, because it's like, yeah, I would love to. If I knew how, I would.
It ain't that easy.
But I think we can all give it up. Or as I like to say, dear God, I am not enlightened enough to not be judging this situation right now. Please take this from me. And I do. And it does wash some calm and peace over me. And so, yes, I have become a much more resilient person, because shit's still blowing up around me. I think I have this huge business deal, and it goes away out of nowhere when I've just bought the new whatever. Yeah. And I think, oh my gosh, but I don't even freak out for 10 seconds. I experience some disappointment, and then I think, all right, well, there must be something even better, more appropriate, or even just different coming my way now. And now I have the space for it. Thank you.
And I personally have found that to be an incredible relief. Now, I've had to practice to get to that point, but during those earlier years when I was about my own little tiny version of world domination, I didn't have patience. If the universe wasn't giving it to me, I was going to, boom, push it through, come hell or high water. Yeah, that didn't work out all that nice. Sometimes a lot of times I got what I wanted. I kind of wish I hadn't. Or there were costs associated with it, like severing connections with people, or people hating me, or hurt feelings, or those sorts of things. Being able to just chill, not to chill, because I'm not really a chill person, but to be able to, at least like you said, surrender, to say, okay, this will happen when it's ready. It's hard for me because I like that feeling of control. I like feeling like I'm the master of my own destiny. But sometimes if we let ourselves not be that master, if we can pull that ego aside, the destiny that Providence, the universe, or chance itself, if that's how you're so inclined, is so much better. So much better.
Yeah. And it is such a sense of relief and peace and practice and letting it be. And, the word patience stems from the Latin word for suffering. So, we're suffering while we're waiting for that thing that we want. But in the case of this book, I just say, thank you, God. I know you're much smarter than me, because I was able to complete my master's degree and get 7 other certifications and pack this book with even more juicy research and experience. And that story that leads off chapter 7, step 7 in the book, that quote, that whole story at the pizza place. And I mean, it's one of my favorite stories ever. And that quote went viral. Jay Shetty and everybody and their mother has shared little old me's quote everywhere. I mean, it has like close to 10 million shares.
I love it.
On Pinterest. And it's not about the numbers. And that's what I say in the book. It's about the fact that those words deeply resonated with a lot of people. And I don't even take credit for them. That was source. I was just the vessel that delivered the message.
Yeah. I can completely relate to that. I want to go back to the top of the hour for a minute. We talked right when our conversation began about the silent revolution of thought. I believe that revolutions notwithstanding, the future of this thought is happening and unfolding with us right now. Where do you see your place in a new movement for meaning-based thinking, Kate Eckman?
I'm just going to answer what's coming
Please.
because I'm exhausted. I'm hot. I'm always hot. I don't know what's happening with the air conditioner, whatever. But what just came to me is, because for instance, I had a woman on live television say to me, well, you're young and beautiful. You get whatever you want. And I know I get judged a lot, based on what I look like or one thing or another. I've had so many people who are downright shocked that I have the degrees from the institutions that I have. And, I'm not even mad. I'm happy to be underestimated, and to change societal views, when it comes to people who look a certain way or certain gender or a certain sexual orientation, whatever it is. I think that my purpose is to deliver this message and this vehicle that may be unexpected, that may be different. And, I think it's also showing people, as I like to say, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love being, a full-time model around the world at 35 years old, size 12. I think people were like, and granted, I'm 5'10", I've got physical character, whatever, the nice skin, nice teeth, stuff that you kind of have to have. However, it's still that thing. I'm not 18 and size 00. And it's, as I used to say as a TV presenter, demonstrating how to do my hair, and I'm horrible at hair. If I can do it, so can you. And so if nothing else, I want people to look at me and it's like, if she can do it, so can I. And some people say, well, she did it because she's white or she's blonde or she's straight or comes from a good family. Sure. The thing is, I don't care anymore. I've had so many struggles and setbacks, and I've also had so many privileges and advantages. I think we need to drop the labels, drop all of the BS, and just own our greatness and power and step out and do the thing, whatever it is. And so I don't even think I'm answering your question, but I'm just getting sick of all of the nonsense, quite frankly, and I'm just going to keep my head down and do the work and hope that people feel seen and heard and acknowledged in my presence, and that when they read my work, they feel less alone in the world, and that makes me feel like a success.
That is indeed a place in a new movement. Kate, this has been a powerful interview. How can people find out more about you?
Sure. You can go to kateeckman.tv, KateEckman.tv, or thefullspiritworkout.com. And I'd love to connect with you there.
Excellent. And connecting with you has been one of the highlights of my week. I think this is going to be a very, very special episode, and I hope folks enjoy it every bit as much as I did. Kate, it has been great taking a ride with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. You're just a delight. I appreciate you so much.
We're a mutual fan club here. And for everyone tuning in, if you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review on Apple or a comment on YouTube. And I shall see you next time for another trip down the Purpose Highway. When you're racing down the Purpose Highway, we want to make sure you're healthy and happy every step of the way. That's why we're proud to partner with It's NOLA, 21st century plant-based healthy granola snack bites made with real ingredients and audacious flavor. It's NOLA crafts small batch hand-rolled granola balls that are vegan, gluten-free, and naturally low in sugar. It's NOLA's delightful bites come in 3 flavors: luscious cranberry coconut, sassy mango masala, and dark, decadent, chewy chocolate. It's NOLA is available to both individual customers and for wholesale accounts at itsnola.com. That's ITSNOLA.com. Guests on this show are already enjoying this delicious snack. Check out It's NOLA's website for yourself and find out how good it is.